This is Operation B, the podcast about living with intention, building what feels true, and dropping the things that don't. A place where purpose meets practice. I'm Jamie Thurber, your host, and together we'll explore how to live with clarity, freedom, and alignment without burning out or losing yourself, because it's time to be who you're meant to be. Let's get into it. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Operation B. I am your host, Jamie Thurber, and today we're going to continue talking about things that can assist anyone into shifting their mindset about what is possible for them, shifting their mindset into what could I actually create, shifting their mindset to realizing that a different life is not only possible, but it's buildable through daily shifts. So that's something that we started talking about before we went through the possibility mindset. We talked about unlearning rules that were not really our rules to begin with. And so today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, actually, is perspective. And so one of the things that I'll tell people when they ask me or when I have hard times and I'm not sure, having a personal brand, let me step back. Having a personal brand or putting your words and your opinions and your thoughts out on the internet is scary. Like it's not always amazing because you're met with ridicule, you're met with a lot of questions, you're met with people, questioning things that come from your heart, which can be really hard. But one of the things I'll say the most when people ask me, why do you do what you do? My answer, and you guys have probably heard me say this before, for those of you who have been here for a while, I believe that something I have a gift at is offering perspective shifts for people that may not otherwise see outside of like their own blinders. And it can be detrimental to someone's growth. It can be detrimental to their heart, to their healing, to our society if people are not willing or able to look outside of their own little bubble, because that's the only way we can really relate to other people. That's the only way we can really grow as partners, as business owners, as human beings, as friends, like all of those, as contributing members of society. So I do say that the majority of what I write, what I record, what I share, what I teach on is I believe that I have a gift for offering a perspective shift, and it's something that I do sometimes 100 times a day. Again, we get caught up similar to when we were talking about the rules. We can get really caught up in what we think we're supposed to do or what someone else told us we were supposed to do or how we needed to follow XYZ rules when that's not always the case. We can get super caught up in that. And so one of the things that that I like to question or like bring to light is like, says who? There's literally a sticker and a t-shirt on my website, homesweetdefiance.com, that says fucking who? ? Because so often we'll be like, well, I have to do it like this. But then when I ask them why or says who, oftentimes people don't have an answer to that question. And so that's where it gives us the opportunity to think a little more, think a little deeper, have that conversation with self so that we can decide and make sure that the decisions that we're making, the way we're showing up, the way we're engaging and interacting with other people really is in alignment with who we are at our core and who we are as people. So the power of a perspective shift is infinite. Like there really is no boundary there. I mean, it can go bad too. It could go the bad direction, but for the sake, obviously, of what our purpose here is, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But why perspective is often the key to real change is that, again, we can't change if we're trying to do the same thing every day. So if you're trying to create a more peaceful experience or a more successful experience or make more money or reach more people or be happier or whatever it is that you're trying to do differently, you're not going to get a different result if you continue to take the same action. So the thing is that you need to realize, even in the small situations, we shift our perspective and we're able to approach the thing, whatever it is, in a different light, with a different attitude. And that's really where change begins and ends, is in the ability to see something differently or want to see something differently. So you're have the courage and you have the curiosity to lean in and ask a question. That's really the deal there, is the curiosity piece. I remember my coaches and my therapist both tell me all the time, the key to getting past old things, old traumas, old scary issues, old whatever, is curiosity. Without curiosity, we don't grow and evolve. So what outside of the box actually looks like in daily life. So meaning perspective. It's just, again, it's like if you're approaching something and you're following in line. Did you guys ever play that game in high school? The Lemmings, like where there's these, I mean, it was one of the like first, it was like in the Oregon Trail days, but it was these little lemmings and they would all be in a line and it would be your job to build a bridge or to stop, like build a wall to redirect them, because they all just followed each other in line and then they would fall off the cliff and they would all die. You wouldn't believe how often I use that example when discussing society with people in detail. But what it looks like in daily life is making your own decisions. What it looks like in daily life is being aware of your surroundings, of being mindful and present enough to think about the reactions or the ripple effect of what may come from your choices, what may come from those small choices you're making inside of your own head. It doesn't even have to be choices that affect other people. There's a ripple effect from every single one of them. For example, there's a ripple effect from hitting snooze, right? So say you hit snooze and that's just what everybody does. Everybody jokes about it. You know, I hit snooze 5 times and blah, blah, blah. Well, if you were to think outside of the everybody box and say, that doesn't make me feel good. What feels good to me is to get up when my alarm goes off. Or what feels good to me is to get up naturally when my body wakes up. Not be like, oh, well, I should sleep more. Or, oh, I should blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like that's a small example. But it's also when you're in a room, say you're in a room and you don't enjoy the way that it's playing out or the way everyone's engaging. It's having the courage to maybe remove yourself from that room because you're like, you know what, this is not productive for me. That doesn't mean you have to have words or say something or make a scene. You can just exit if you want to. You could also decide that you're not going to join in on said thing that other people are, you know, all gathering together to do if it doesn't feel right to you. It's really a matter of being present in your own moments so that you can be mindful enough to make choices that are yours, not other people's. That's really what outside of the box looks like in daily life. And all of those things stack up on top of each other to create something that you actually enjoy. And also sets you free a ton as far as pressure and obligation. So I highly recommend. It is nice. Real examples of this would be things like, I have a client who runs a salon, and in salon world, it's unheard of to do a lot of the things that she has done because, and I could list 1,000 reasons that people have as to why you shouldn't do XYZ thing that she's done. And I remember we had a conversation. She likes to tell this story where she was really scared about one of the changes that just felt really right. And it was like really her thinking outside the box, but really fit like her client book and the way she ran her business. And she was like, but what if it doesn't work? And I was like, we change it back. That's it. We change it back. It doesn't have to be some huge thing, right? It's like sometimes we can try something and if it doesn't work, we put it back. It's not the end of the freaking world, right? And so in that, she's taken a lot of scary chances that other people in her industry will think are nuts, and they work. Now, what ends up happening is other people follow her lead. Now, does it work for everyone? No. But does it work for some people? Yeah, it sure does. You know, it's the same thing with thinking outside the box or shifting a perspective. Like, the heart and the reason behind it has to make sense. But like for you as an individual in your individual situation. But with that being said, I mean, her being able to make that decision and trust that if it didn't work, we could just shift. That's one of the things, honestly, that the shutdown during COVID did for all of my clients. None of them went out of business. None of them closed completely, even though they were not deemed, what was the word they used to use, like necessary or whatever it was. What they did was they shifted. So I had hairstylists that were giving online tutorials of how to style your own hair. I had hairstylists that were doing root touch-up matches through FaceTime with their clients and sending them at-home kits that they trusted and knew that would be great, that they could do their own roots if they wanted to. I had clients doing porch drop-offs for makeup and hair supplies and whatever it was. So they were still completely in business. They were teaching online classes. They were doing whatever they could to remain in contact with their community while still generating income, while still being a thought leader in their field. I have my mechanical shops who did a specific process where the clients would drop the vehicles off. There was a key slot. They would put their keys in. They'd sign their document. They would get a phone call. So there was no face-to-face. There was no, risk or whatever, especially at the very beginning when everybody was like really, really scared. But people still needed their vehicles fixed so they could exist, So we just adjusted. Sold a lot of gift cards. I did a lot of free trainings during that time personally because I wanted to offer people peace of mind of what it could be like to work from home because I had already been doing it for 7 years at that point. So I wanted to be able to give them some perspective on how that could work and help them be set up for success. So those are all real life examples of what it can mean to really be able to use the power of a perspective shift. Absolutely. So one of the things I get asked the most about that is how do I reframe in real time, like in the moment? And it's really what I just talked about of really what outside of the box looks like. And it all really will come down to you being able to be present enough in the room, which is something we talk about a lot. Like, how do you create that? Well, you do it with intention. You create that by being in control of your own thoughts, your own actions, and where your time goes. So the majority of people are not present in rooms these days because they're on their phones. They're more connected with what's going on their Instagram feed or on their Snapchat story or their Facebook than they are in the room they're standing in. And they're doing themselves such a massive disservice by doing that. I was recently at a dinner and it was interesting because it was people, the majority of them were over 45 probably, and still so many people were on their phones. Like, I was shocked. I give my friends shit like that are my age when we go out or we're doing stuff and they're all on their phones because like Tony and I don't do that. It's something we did early in our relationship. Well, he never has. He hates his phone. It's the source of a lot of constant phone calls for work. But anyway, early in our relationship, I was on my phone a lot and it caused a lot of fights for us. But when I realized that like I didn't want to fight about that, it was stupid and it wasn't helping me, it was hurting me, keeping me distracted, keeping me comparing myself, keeping me in that loop-de-loop of what's next or I'm not enough or what the fuck ever. Your phone is going to be one of your biggest downfalls when it comes to staying present in a room because what's going on out there does not matter if you're not in the room you're in right now, meaning this is the space that you actually have control over and impact or the ability to influence fast and easy. But what it does is it lightens the load for you personally and professionally when you're able to be in the room because that's how you're able to practice reframing your thought process in the moment of, well, I have to. And it's like, wait a minute, I don't have to. I'm choosing to. Oh, I got to do it this way because so-and-so said. And it's like, but do I? And sometimes, sure, that is like when the freaking people at the airport tell you have to do XYZ thing that way, like you don't get to make that change, right? But when you're grocery shopping or handling your day-to-day life or how you handle your whatever, you get to choose what works best for you. Here's the kicker. This is the reason why most people don't do this. And this is going to be mean. Maybe not. Maybe pissing people off. It's because we don't want to think for ourselves. We don't want to think for ourselves, but then we want to bitch about what we don't have, or what we haven't created, or what we haven't received. And that's crap, you guys. Like, that's, come on now. Like, you don't get to complain about what you don't have and then do nothing about it. That's one of my largest pet peeves. Something I will not do is continuously have the same conversation with someone over and over again when they're not doing anything to change the situation. I just won't. I can't. There's nothing more draining to me, honestly. So people don't want to shift these things because they don't want to have to do it. They'd rather be led. So here's the deal. If that's your reality, that's fine. Accept it. Be happy with it. It's a choice you're making. You get to make a choice, and that's great. You get to live in a world where you get to make the choice to follow the leader, and that's okay. Sometimes we all have our moments to follow the leader, but you know what I'm saying. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if you genuinely want to shift the way you're looking at life or feeling about life or handling life, you have to be willing to make your own decisions and then stand by them. That's the other hard part. Everybody makes these decisions and then they question themselves 1,000 times and it takes away the power of the decision. You need to make the decision and trust yourself. How do we make a decision that we can trust? We be present. We be. Operation B. We bring ourselves into the room. We evaluate what's going on. We lean in with curiosity and find out more before we move. We move based on our own evidence that we've gathered, based on our own gut, on our own health, on our own desires. That's really the perspective shift you're looking for. That is one of the things that will give you I want more lifestyle. How do I get more? Well, here's one of the steps. So an action that you can take from this is try one perspective shift this week. And I would start looking for something that maybe doesn't feel great for you or feels really mundane or you don't love the way that it's flowing. Look for that. And when you find something like that, approach it with, what can I shift my perspective? How can I shift my perspective on this? Maybe it's just the attitude that you have towards it, or maybe it's the way you're doing the thing. So give yourself the opportunity to be curious and play around with it, but that's your action step from this episode is try one perspective swap this week. And I hope it's one that makes you feel a little more free, a little more grounded in who you are, and a little more capable, because you are. We all are. We just have to let ourselves and get out of our own way. As always, you guys, thank you so much for being here and for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you have not left a review for the show, please make sure you do that wherever you're listening. It helps us a lot. This show is fully funded by me, and I'd love to have it reach more people. That's something that is really, really supportive of our mission. So as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you later. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for listening to Operation B, the podcast. To support this message and to support the show, please make sure that you like, follow, and share wherever you enjoy listening. And be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. That's the way to support this message. Thank you for being here, and see you next time.